Welcome back. Today we're traveling along to our next successfully published author here with FirstEditing, and we are so proud to have Tony Damian with us. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you.
Today we have Tony with us, and we are just going to discuss his book, Finding the Alchemist Within. And we are very excited. Tony has been with us for a couple of years now and is doing exceptionally well and has lots of new things going on with podcasts and audiobooks. So a lot of great recommendations he can share with us. Tony, can you just describe yourself and tell us a little bit about your book and where you are as an author?
Sure. I'm a writer of nonfiction in the healing arts, and I have been working with energy work for the past 20 years, and my experiences come from having a back injury back in the 80s. I was told by doctors that I was going to be paralyzed from the waist down within 4 years, that there was no surgery to be done that can help me, and to me it wasn't acceptable. I couldn't deal with that. So I walked away from it, and I went into alternative medicine. I did acupuncture for about a year, and it really helped a lot. And then I found Reiki, which is hands-on healing, energy healing. And for the first time in almost 7 years, I was entirely pain-free. I started learning the modality myself and started working on myself. And as time went on, I found that, working one-on-one with people, I started my own practice once I became what's considered a master teacher. People started telling me, Tony, you need to write a book on this because nobody else is doing what you're doing. Not only was I healing myself, but I was teaching other people how to heal themselves one-on-one. I also taught guided meditation classes and Qigong, which is moving energy. So I started doing this in groups, and eventually, scratching notes on napkins and paper towels and little notebooks here and there, I compiled enough information to really sit down and start considering putting together a manuscript, which is what I did. And it took a lot of work, but eventually I had it all in one place and started putting my book together.
That's fantastic. That's really great. It's quite a journey, and I love the fact that you walked away from that. So that's just fantastic. What was your ultimate goal with the book? What was your ideal end result? I mean, I know you're still in the process, but tell us a little bit about your motivations.
Okay, well, my motivation, as I said, was, getting it out to the masses in guided meditations on MP3 and CDs, which I have one of the 5 already recorded, and doing audiobooks. But my motivation was really to put into words that people can understand is that you don't have to settle for what you're told by anybody. People get spoken things over their heads and they absolutely believe it. I mean, in the healing arts, I see it all the time. Almost 80% of people that are told that they only have a year to live exactly a year to that day. And the only ones that seem to make it any further are mothers, grandmothers who have family. They make it to the holidays. In fact, this time of year, Christmas time, is one of the worst periods of time for people passing away. And it's due to all of this. So it really was, the motivation was to show people that there's another way, that the way is them, that they can heal themselves.
That's motivation in itself. So on this journey, you met some other people, you've used different tools, maybe some groups online. Tell us about what has been helpful to you in the process.
Well, I've met a lot of people on Facebook and LinkedIn. These are authors, and it's been invaluable. The biggest thing I found as a resource was letting go of ego, letting go of that possession, which is my manuscript, my baby. I turned to my fiance, who now is my co-author, for help. Because as I was writing, I got to the point of describing the chakras, the energy centers of the body. And, I laid out what colors are associated to them, what diseases can, be found by the energy transfers of what chakras. And it was boring stuff. It was just like absolutely boring. It was all technical. And I turned to her because she's a naturopath, homeopath, life coach, weight loss coach. She's responsible for Orlando losing 17 tons of fat over the past 40 years. And I said, hey, can you help me with this, with the chakras? Because she works with the energy centers in entirely a different way. And, she was able to put together what foods to eat, what herbs to use, aromatherapy, just on and on and on. The history, the rituals around them. And in fact, what she put together for me turned out to be a workbook within my writing. It turned it into an entirely different thing. It turned it into almost a reference book. In fact, from that, of me turning to her for help, it also opened her. She had that writer's block. She's been wanting to write 3 books her whole entire life and couldn't find a way of doing it. So now, having me as her motivation, she wrote this beautiful little workbook. And now I took that workbook and handed it back to her just over the summer. And within a few months, she published her coloring book. And it's a coloring activity workbook around the chakras, which doesn't exist anywhere. It has positive affirmations, it has things to color, it has the history and things to do every day. So, it was a really invaluable thing. And I found that social media is the best. I mean, I've been involved in social media since long before the internet was even around, with talking to people around the world. And LinkedIn and Facebook is invaluable. I have about 12.5 friends that are all published authors, and we share our findings and our foibles almost daily. And it's really great, because what I found myself doing was stalking the authors that I knew that were successful, and stalking in a way of watching the way that they're promoting their books themselves, and how they put their presence forward in social media. And it's really helped me from making vital errors in trial and error, when you got a resource to go off of. So that's been very very big in my world.
Yeah, teaming up is so important. So important. I think people think they do it all, and it just can't. So it's so nice to have people helping you. I guess that leads into why did you choose a professional editing in your journey?
That's kind of humorous, actually, because I write the way I talk. I spent 12 years as a teacher. I've taught everything from computer sciences to science. And, I have a tendency of run-on sentences, as you can see. I like to over-explain things time and time again. And that's not real conducive when you're writing something that's supposed to be a reference guide. So I turned to professional editing because, even though I was publishing myself, and I was an artist and a layout design artist, back when I was younger, so putting the book together was no big deal. But really taking my words and doing a little bit of wordsmithing, but really how I'm using words was very important. After I was able to release my book to my fiance and actually read it to her, I got a little braver. And so then I took all that whole manuscript and handed it to FirstEditing, because, with the research I did, I saw that they really seemed to have the best track record. And they assigned a guy to me who was absolutely amazing. Not only did he understand my genre with self-healing, but he took a genuine interest, and he would send me notes along the way saying, wow, this is really amazing, you're changing my life. Just such a positive thing that it turned my fears of my own work into pride. And what he came back with, I thought I had something that was a masterpiece. It can't be any better. I was so wrong. What I got back was a masterpiece. I mean, we read this thing. In fact, I don't really use reading the book to myself as a way of doing it. I put it right into Word, and I highlight an entire paragraph, and I hit the read aloud button, because then you can sit back and actually listen to your own work coming back at you. So you kind of disconnect and have an ability to absorb what it is that you just wrote. And what we were listening to sounded like something amazing. It really took, what I had as a thought and an idea, and just by turning a few things around here and there, really turned it into a masterpiece. And I was extremely pleased with what I got back.
Wow, that's so great to hear. I'm glad your experience was just perfect. And there's a lot of work going in there. So tell us about the roadblocks that in your writing. What challenges did you overcome there?
Well, roadblocks are real. It's the thing of getting out of my own way. I would sit down, with the manuscript. This is before even going to editing. I would sit there and read it and reread it and reread it. And then I'd start changing a paragraph here and there and then changing the words around. And because I had pictures and graphs in my book, I would change the pictures out to the paragraph. It was all the fear of pushing the send button and letting it go. I found that my biggest problem in beginning all of this was really concentrating and focusing on what to do first. It's the thing of you got to write, and then you have to put the pen down, and then you have to, then look at what the next steps are. So it's really doing it step by step and not looking for the diversions. The hardest thing for us to do as writers is to put the pen down and say, yes, I'm done, and now go off to the next thing. It's finding all of these little diversions that really become the roadblocks to success, because you don't ever get to a point where your ego is going to allow you to just hand your work to somebody else and say, here, cut it to shreds, rewrite it, throw it out the window, tell me it's junk, tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, tell me I don't know how to develop characters, whatever the case may be. And we really have to step away from that and accept the fact that there are people out there that can help us. And I think that is a big roadblock that we all face. And, if there's any words of advice, it's accept and allow other people to come in and help.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, that's great. So did you have any specific steps that you took to become published?
Yeah, yes, I did. Number one, and most importantly, is putting the pen down. I found that I was just a big scaredy cat. I didn't want to release it. And finally, I got to the point that, okay, I've been sitting here pondering and playing around with this thing for 3 months. I need to let it go. And the other thing, as I mentioned before, in success is stepping back. Whether you take your manuscript and you email it to yourself and read it like somebody else did, or like I did with using Word to highlight and play it back to you, or even sitting down and reading it out loud or having somebody else read it and record it and play it back is real important, because you get to, really separate yourself and listen. And the other biggest thing in success is to trust others to help you. Trust is a big issue when it comes to something as personal as our manuscripts. Ego doesn't allow any room for improvement on its own. It's the hardest and most important step to success in publishing, I think. And you can always say no to whatever anybody else says, because it's your work.
That's true. So that's all of our emotional and mental preparation there. What were some of the more definitive things? What costs were there involved, and how can other people avoid unnecessary costs?
That's a good question. I really didn't even look into that stuff until after I got the manuscript done. And, I wanted to publish with as little cost as possible, because I don't have a lot of money. It's that easy. And, copy editing through FirstEdit was like very affordable. And I knew that I needed a copy editor. I knew I needed somebody to really look at this thing. So I looked at the basic package and I went with that. And self-publishing through CreateSpace, Amazon, is free. I did all my own work as far as the artwork goes and the layout of the book. So, the publishing was going to be free. So I knew that when I got my work back, it really was the quality of the printing that I had to worry about. And granted, I have to do my own advertising and my own marketing. And to me, that's a labor of love. I do it daily. I'm in social media all the time. So my full cost for the entire book was just under $900, which isn't bad at all, and well worth it.
That's really good, I would say, because we've heard a large range of prices there, so that's very good, and I think inspiring for other people. So, and how did you manage your time during all this?
Well, I managed my time by really setting a goal. Every day I was going to spend 2 hours on the book. And at first it didn't matter what the time was, but I always found there was something else going on. And having my own practice I'm also a massage therapist, I set my own schedule. So whenever I found myself in the house alone, if Catherine is off working or with a client of her own, that was my time I would sit down and do my writing. But spending 2 hours a day, no matter when it is, like at night, is imperative to reaching that goal. you can't sit there and say, well, I'll get around to it, or I'm going to spend an hour a week. You sit down, you buckle down, and you seriously set the goal of a certain amount of time each day. And, the biggest waste of times was really, looking for a new app, or watching a video on what somebody else does, or listening to a podcast on publishing, and doing everything else except what you're supposed to do. So really, the biggest thing to avoid the time wasters is to set the goal of time every single day and do it. If you have writer's block, walk away from it and then come back. And, even if you go for a walk, my big thing was to sit down and play Facebook games for a couple of hours. You get out of your own head, and when you come back, you have the answers. So it's all about that kind of focus.
Very good. Very good. And is there anything in all of that you wish you'd done differently? It sounds like you buckled down very well.
Yeah, well, if I had done it differently, and I'm also looking at we've published 2 books, an ebook, doing the audio book right now to the first book, and I'm looking at doing podcasts and such, and writing. 2 of us are doing collaborative works. We have 2 more books in our process, and our own stuff is really the acceptance and allowance of help from other people. I'm using social media for that by actually putting ideas out and getting ideas back, and mentioning that, in the book itself, with the help of this little group, my inner sanctum, so it's the thing of allowing others to help. And, it's the thing, it's really all about just focusing on what you're doing at the time. And, the only thing I would really do differently is get the editor involved immediately. It would have saved me an awful lot of time. And there it is. I mean, all in one package.
Yeah. Hindsight is 20/20, as they say. So any final words of advice for all our authors out there who also want to be successfully published?
Well, yeah, to writers and soon to be publishers, my advice being in the healing arts would be this. The human body only has 2 modes of operation. That's rest and digest, or fight or flight. If you constantly live in stress, you're in fight or flight mode. The brain can only think about survival, even if there's no lion chasing you. What this means is that worry, obsessive thought or behavior, fear, doubt, anxiety, all block the mind from being creative. This causes anything you eat to turn to sugar, to be burned immediately, to run from the lion. Oh, wait, there's no lion. There's nothing chasing you, so there's no calories burned. So you end up gaining weight and you lose sleep. This adds to that stress. It's a vicious cycle. We have to accept and allow and let go, accepting everything for what it is that very moment. The past can never be changed, relived, or fixed by ourselves. It can only be forgiven or forgotten. So accept everything as it is. There's no higher purpose to something, release it. Whether it's something now or in the past, you have to just let it all go. The future is always tomorrow, and it never comes. So the past and the future are all in the mind. They're not reality. So allow things to just be. This mindset will release you of the predetermined notions that you have, predetermined outcomes, and allow you to relax with the idea that everything is what it is. When the lion, as I mentioned, misses its mark and has nothing to eat that night, it doesn't dwell on the failure. It doesn't have any remorse. It doesn't have self-doubt. It doesn't hold a grudge against itself for the poor performance of that day. It goes to bed hungry and gets up the next day and hunts again. We humans, however, don't do this. We do everything possible, it seems, to fall out of sync with nature and its natural rhythms. By smoking, drinking, taking drugs, not eating correctly, sleeping irregularly, working too hard, not taking care of ourselves. Not only do we hold remorse, self-doubt, and grudges, but we also ignore all the warning signs of stress, illness, fatigue, and disease. So my advice is, let it all go for a moment and just breathe. You will instantly start to feel relaxed. Continue breathing and thinking about nothing. And now you'll find yourself entering rest and digest mode. The breathing is the easiest thing to do, but it's the most important. And when you do that and you start to relax, you put yourself into a mindset of rest and digest. This is time to heal. This is time to digest not only your food, but all of life. It's time to sleep well. It's time to dream. And the most important thing for your book, it's time to be creative. You know, letting go of ego is the hardest thing to do, but it's imperative to success. I had to do this when I was writing my manuscript. Like I said, with that chapter, it was boring, blah, 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 all technical, nothing interesting. I handed it to Catherine, and what she handed back was a masterpiece. Not only did I help myself, but I helped her. So, you know, it's the thing of taking that leap of faith. Take it and utilize the resources that you have available to you and around you. Don't predetermine who can help you and you know, and say, oh, I can't go to them. They have no idea. All of the things that I teach now, I learned from my 3 daughters when they were itty bitty. All right. Children have a thing because they don't have any blinders on. They only live in the moment. They don't know anything of the past. They don't have one. They don't think of the future except for Christmas and their birthday. Bounce things off your kids. You never know where the good stuff is coming from. And, you know, with me, success was with FirstEditing. Every employee that I encountered there was a joy to work with. They had prompt answers. And having the copy editor that I did, he understood my genre. You know, he made my words concise and clear and proper. And, you know, the notes of encouragement, like I said, that he gave me transformed all my fears into pride. So it's really letting go and allowing. Allow the help to come in. Allow yourself to release your work to others. Put it out there on the internet. Put a chapter up for free for people to read. Help them develop your characters. I watch other authors do this, and they're quite successful. And so that really, you know, would be my words for encouragement and success.
Thank you. That's the most wonderful advice that we've received, and I really want to thank you for sharing it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for allowing me.
Oh, this has been an absolute pleasure. I just want to thank you, Tony, and I do encourage everyone to go out and check out his book.
Finding the Alchemist Within, Turning Yourself to Gold, a journey through the labyrinth of self-healing. And yeah, I have my author's page up there, and on that page, I have links to my website, which is The Power of We, with 3 E's, like we, thepowerofwe.com. And you can hop on there and join my tribe, our tribe, and keep a steady watch on the new things that we have going. Thank you.
Thank you. We will definitely be there, and we look forward to more books. More books. Yay. We'll be here waiting for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Joellen. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day. You too. Bye-bye.
Namaste. Bye-bye.